When it comes to expressing one's view with what I'll say is done under the banner of freedom of speech, and when that view is expressed publicly, done in a manner to influence public opinion, voice displeasure and dissent, and also to draw attention to injustices, which put simply, it's called a protest. This Monday, Premier Mark McGowan announced a comprehensive review of his government's pandemic response. Premier McGowan said the following when considering the view that he wants to establish, and I quote, "what worked, what didn't work, and what the lessons are for the future, and I just want to come up with good ideas for the future," end quote. That said, Premier McGowan did state his comprehensive review comes with the following caveat.
I'm not interested in a witch hunt.
Without the terms of reference being known regarding this pandemic response review announcement, I for one can think of a number of questions. Should the review incorporate the role WA Police played in executing Premier McGowan's political agenda in managing COVID? What action would constitute arrest by WA Police? Or, based on the current manner of policing witnessed at protests over the past 2.5 years, what action should result in arrest, or at the very least the issuing of a move-on notice by police? Would it be a person sitting in a public space in this manner?
So I'm with, what's your name?
Zephyr.
I'm with Zephyr today. He was sitting exactly on the ground just as he is right now.
Reading
sitting
my
there,
devotional book.
reading your...
Devotional book?
Reading his devotional book. Just minding his own business. He was in a park, in a public place, sitting exactly as he is now, but with his head down in his book.
Or would it be a group of protesters acting collectively in a manner like this?
Everybody link arms! 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 Everybody link arms!
For completeness in the examples I've just outlined, the answer is the 17-year-old boy sitting in a public space reading his book was arrested.
There's a religious guy just there, just about to get arrested. Look at these. I just feel disgusted being Australian. Look at...
No move-on notice. His behaviour sitting in a public space reading his book on devotion, for that the WA Police moved straight to arrest for breaching the peace and trespassing, they say. In this stream, I'm going to take a look at the disparity of law enforcement when it comes to exercising freedom of speech, where potential alleged breaches of the peace in exercising that speech are apparent, and the free pass law enforcement WA Police give to educational institutes, in this case the University of Western Australia's Student Guild. It's easy to count on one hand the small number of topics that evoke controversy. It's not by design that this stream looks at 3 of what would easily form the top 5 most controversial topics, that is pro-life, pro-choice and freedom of speech. Over the past 2.5 years, myself and the team from Freedom Media WA have covered numerous protest rallies where those from the WA community have taken to Perth streets in ever-growing numbers to publicly express their opinion over Premier Mark McGowan's government's overreach into body autonomy, preventing people's ability to work and of course providing security for themselves and their families. Not to mention preventing loved ones from visiting the elderly, attending weddings and preventing last respect being given to those that have passed. As I've highlighted many times in previous streams, Premier McGowan's COVID management has caused division within family units, within workplaces and community groups, the likes of we won't realise the full impact for many years to come. And sadly, it seems now more than ever social media platforms have made discussions on these matters an almost mundane part of our society, with not all but some people tending to generalise a number of beliefs based on skim reading via any number of social media platforms without any further research. Or, as we've seen in the past 2.5 years throughout the pandemic, people's views have been greatly swayed with government narratives delivered, flooded, if you like, via government-sponsored mainstream media. Here in Perth last Saturday, on the 28th of October, a small Catholic parish held a private event advertised within a closed loop. It was organised by a group called the Coalition for the Defence of Human Life, and guest speakers included Archbishop Emeritus Barry Hickey and WA Shadow Attorney General the Honourable Nick Gorian, MLC. Now, this stream isn't about expressing my views or anyone else's views for that matter on either of these two very controversial topics, pro-life and pro-choice. I will say though, if one of the views of a leader of the protesters against the Healing and Help Through a Culture of Life conference, Kate Salinger, let's hear from she/her, I guess to cover all bases, they them.
On Sunday, the 8th of October 2022, in Melbourne, Australia, one of my friends was pepper sprayed by the police. My friend was there with their wife, standing up for the rights of everyone to bodily autonomy.
You would be mistaken to think Kate understands her pro-choice stance citing body autonomy is also a stance for basic human rights. If she, her, or they, them did understand the link with pro-choice and basic human rights, then she, her, or they, them would have been supporting Nick Gorian, MLC, when he was speaking to this on September the 21st.
The Committee of the Whole House of the House of Review, the Legislative Council in Western Australia, has been prevented from considering all of the provisions in this bill. And of course, it's a matter of public record that the decision was made that it not be considered by the Specialist Standing Committee on Legislation. In all of those circumstances, Acting President, I distance myself entirely from this bill. It does not have my support, and indeed I oppose it.
The question is the bill be now read a third time. All those of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those to contrary, no.
No.
I think the ayes have it.
Divide.
There being a call for decision, I'll ring the bells.
Being pro-choice or pro-life is something most people are likely to feel very strongly about, regardless of your religious beliefs. My opinion may differ from yours. However, what I am highlighting is the significant discrimination, how those with differing views are dealt with when there are stark differences regarding how those views are actually expressed. Just on 2 weeks ago, when the Emergency Management Amendment Temporary COVID-19 Provisions Bill 2022 was being rammed through WA Parliament, the Freedom Media team were at WA Parliament to get comments from parliamentarians regarding the bill. Now, it was a particularly fast-paced environment to get comments and footage, but enough for me to be able to bring you and show the stark differences with how police respond as to how a protester is dealt with.
Good afternoon, Meredith. Can I ask you, when the COVID Emergency Management Bill came through the upper house, do you think that there was an appropriate level of debate? Are you comfortable with the positions of the lower house?
About 5 minutes after that, here is the same man making similar statement.
Breaking and entering into people's homes without warrant?
I can speak right now 5 months.
Do you think your constituents would deserve some type of comment?
I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm speaking up for my rights. No hide.
Now he's getting a move on notice by police.
For just calling dog.
Now, protests are loud and there is passion. However, at what point does making a point cross the threshold to hate speech?
They were pepper sprayed in their mouth and their eyes. They were standing, chanting, holding a placard. So we keep resisting, standing in solidarity with those who are resisting now, who've come before us, and hopefully standing so that those who follow behind don't have to.
Fuck the state, women must decide their fate. Fuck the church, fuck the state, women must decide their fate. Fascists, fuck off.
Of all the footage you've just seen, and there was about 20 minutes of chants with foul language and potential hate speech that I'm simply not prepared to bring you, all said in the full view of police with no action taken. Yesterday I spoke to James Parker, who was one of the organisers and a speaker at the conference, about what impact the protesters had on those attending, and here's what he had to say.
Well, in some ways, it certainly didn't stop the room from being absolutely full of people who turned up. And as you've mentioned, the event was about healing and about hope. And the people who came along to the event were very concerned about the men and the women who've been left grieving as a result of any aspect of abortion or of sexual assault itself. It's just a shame that a number of them felt harassed and, in fact, in some ways, almost directly attacked, trying to enter an event that really was about helping our fellow West Australians to heal and find hope in the face of trauma.
What's more, I can tell you that 2 parishioners' vehicles incurred damage as a result of left-wing protesters impeding entry into that church's ground. Again, here's James Parker.
Well, certainly a number of people who entered into the venue came to me and said that their cars had been hit, their cars had been punched as they were entering into the grounds itself. Some of them said it was rather intimidating, and certainly, as I say, a number of people who attended the event, they've experienced past trauma, and some of them are still experiencing trauma, which is why they turned up. So to have somebody attack their car while trying to attend an event that seeks to help them with trauma, while sort of almost re-traumatizing them on the way in, was not very helpful whatsoever.
Lastly, I put to James that I had been told, despite their behaviour, the left-wing protesters were given an invitation to come inside and participate in the conference.
Yes, that's right, absolutely correct. And then, of course, the organisers, we were very clear beforehand that, you know, even when we found out there could possibly be protesters, we believe very much that everybody has a right in a democracy to have their voices heard. But we also believe that this should be done politely, it should be done respectfully. There was still an invitation that was extended for every person present to be able to come into the venue itself and to come and ask questions they wanted to ask.
This story is about parity. Police took absolutely no action on the day, either with the protesters' behaviour or the damage caused to at least 2 vehicles that I've been made aware of. Now, moving on from police inaction is the lack of accountability also flowed through to the UWA Student Guild, who, when asked, denied knowledge that they sponsored the protest. I spoke to a female person who didn't want to be identified, who made inquiries directly with the UWA Student Guild the day before the conference, which would have given plenty of time to implement some type of control measures for UWA students representing the university. Now let's have a listen.
Yes, so when the gentleman explained that they do welcome freedom of speech, I asked what was his view on the fact that the Good Shepherd Catholic Church were holding a private event for healing for the defence of life, and the UWA Student Guild was actually supporting protesters by advertising on billboards and banners across Perth to attend the event and protest outside. He said that he was unaware of any posters that had been put out by the Women's Guild, and that he knew nothing about it. I got that he could no longer comment, and I needed to email the president of the UWA Guild, and he gave me the email address. I told him that I believed that these posters were inciting violence. Possibly they could incite violence.
But not all responsibility for the appalling conduct of left-wing protesters can be attributed to the UWA Student Guild. I'm going to play you a little bit more.
Nazi scum of our streets! Nazi scum of our streets! Nazi scum of our streets! Pro-life, it's a lie! You don't care women die! Pro-life is a lie! You don't care.
Stop there. I'm going to go and rewind the last bit and play it again for you. And stop. Meet Max Vickery. This is Max earlier this year advertising for left-wing protesters to come and attend the City of Fremantle and the City of Rockingham council meetings where there were motions to end the mandate. Max runs the Fremantle branch of the WA Socialist Alliance Party, a party that stands for socialism, taken directly from their website, and a democratic society run by and for working people, where they put people and the planet before profit. The Socialist Alliance states that it's made up of people like millions of others who are sick and tired of being ruled by warmongers, racist, union bashers and capitalist politicians. Myself and the team were at the special council meeting of the City of Fremantle where Max spoke to the motion. Let's take a listen.
I've worked in Fremantle for 4 years. I love my job, but the danger that the unvaccinated pose to me during the early days of the backpacker outbreak, one person had the audacity to brandish a fake mask exemption card and expected me to serve them while they leaned over the counter. This is the kind of behaviour that this so-called pro-choice petition emboldens. If this petition is not decisively struck down, it will lead to a sense of resignation in the community. I didn't want to catch COVID-19 at my workplace and give it to my immunocompromised family or friends. And I'm not the only one. Us workers aren't afraid of getting the vaccine. We're afraid of getting COVID.
Afterwards, I spoke to Max and I attempted to interview him where he denied any involvement with the WA Socialist Alliance Party and further denied he fueled comments on a Facebook group he created called the Neighbourhood Alliance that all anti-vaxxers should be burnt at stakes. Not exactly pro-choice and body autonomy now, are you, Max? Of course, one of the most apparent incidents we've captured of WA police being weaponised against those exercising freedom of speech in a vocal but peaceful manner was at the infamous New Year's Day races, where a number of people attended to protest about the public being prevented from attending those races due to mandates.
The 1st of January 2022, Perth, Western Australia, myself and a friend were arrested for simply standing in the shade. You're gonna false arrest me for nothing. I'm gonna place you under arrest. You're gonna place me under arrest for nothing. For doing nothing. I've done nothing wrong. Do you understand that? Yeah. I've got your number there, Mills.
No worries, it's 115. My husband actually hasn't done anything wrong. You can't falsely arrest him. Currently going to be placed under arrest.
You're hurting him! You're hurting him!
So not only should Premier Mark McGowan's pandemic review look at his actions and that of his government's role in WA's pandemic response, it should also look at all the overreaching decisions and actions of all the non-elected bureaucrats, government departments, big business, of course the WA Police and WA Health, and most definitely, in my opinion, should be open to public submissions for those impacted by Premier McGowan's management the most, and that is you. There has been a massive shift from WA Police remaining apolitical throughout this pandemic. WA Police were weaponised to enforce Premier Mark McGowan's pandemic politics. It was alarming just how quickly West Australia lapsed into a police state, and that needs to be bisected in this independent review. To those that have commented, thank you very much. Please like and share, and as many of you know by now, mainstream media will not bring you this type of insight. I'm Lindsay from Freedom Media WA. Thank you for watching.
Brought to you by Freedom Media WA, where journalism should never be a government narrative.